Okay, we've seen the report today about rising daycare costs in most Canadian cities and how public subsidies are beginning to bring some of those rates down in a lot of cities. And in years to come, more federal money will go toward creating and maintaining more childcare spaces. But what role should government be playing in childcare? I'm joined by Andrea Mrozek, the program director for a faith-based think tank called Cardus, and by Nora Spinks, the chief executive officer of the Vanier Institute of the Family. It's good to see you all, or both of you. Thank you for coming in. When we look at the fees that many Canadian families are paying for childcare in this country, there's a wide range, but for some it can be as much or more than a monthly mortgage payment. Do we have a system that's working? Let's start there.
I would say we don't, but we also don't want to ignore parents who are at home, parents who use other forms of care, parents who use independent child care providers. So the report that came out today spoke of costs for a sector that covers care for about 20 to 25% of children. The rest of every child is being cared in a different way, and what we want is equity for the type of care that works for parents, whatever they choose.
Nora, what do you think? Is the system working?
Well, for the families that have access in their community for the type of care that works best for them, then the system is working. The question then becomes for those families who are either forced by circumstance, not being able to find the care they want, or not being able to make the choice that's best for them right now, then the system's not working. So we've got some work to do. There is no one size fits all. And the thing about childcare is that once you've got it, you're very happy with it, it's working well, it's your first choice, you're going to be pretty quiet about it. If you haven't found a good fit, then you're going to have all kinds of stressors, and that's what the voices that we tend to hear. The thing with those families who do find the right kind of care, they're in rhythm, they've got really good infant care, and then their child becomes a toddler and they have to find new care or different care.
Does the government need to be involved in childcare? Should the government at any level, federal, provincial, in delivering childcare services?
Whatever level of involvement we see from government has to be equitable for all parents.
What does that mean?
So ultimately, I just spoke of the report where it's talking about center-based care almost exclusively. And that, again, is a low percentage of children in that type of care. And the low percentage is because parents don't choose center-based care. They're choosing other forms. So we cannot have something that funds preferentially over other types of care. We would like to see if there's going to be, and there's Canadian consensus on government funding for childcare, it has to go to anyone providing childcare. Childcare is the care of a child regardless of who does it. It doesn't happen necessarily only in centers, though it happens there too. Happens in home care centers, in home care settings, happens with family members juggling schedules, etc. We need to be equitable about that.
Nora, does it have? Is there a reason to provide it in centers, as Andrea says?
Well, it's not centers versus everything else. It's licensed, regulated, high-quality care, which is what most families want when they're in need of care in order to allow them to continue their education or participate in the labor force. And Andrea is right. There are a lot of families who aren't choosing group-based care because it's not available because there's not enough supply.
Surveys show parents don't choose it because they don't want it, not because it's not available, and that's been pretty consistent across the years.
Sorry, they choose it because they don't want it?
They don't choose center-based care first. They choose a family member first. They choose local home-based care centers first, and then they would move into something that is further away from that.
But did they do that because of the cost? Because they can get a family member to do it more cheaply?
It's remarkably resilient. This result is remarkably resilient across party lines, across whether you're working or not, and across men and women. Generally speaking, center-based care is the last form of care that people choose, and so that's not what we want to be primarily funding.
Well, the research actually shows that families want high-quality care, and high quality means licensed, available in the community, and provided by professionals. And we know that when that kind of care is available, it actually does become a family's primary choice.
You must be reading different surveys.
Well, there's perhaps some of the evidence, is contradictory on this. But I mean, let me move to the notion that we have. Seems to me we have clearly a system that is moving across the country that is headed towards a universal system and a publicly funded system. We're seeing the federal government do it. More and more provinces are starting to do more of this. Is that where we're headed?
There's a problem in childcare research, I should add, and that's that it's very difficult to get into the homes of parents, difficult to get into the home care settings. And so what you see primarily in childcare research is a study of center-based care because that's easily accessed. It's easy to know where a center is, and it's easier to look at that and study it. And so we don't tend to have a compare and contrast on the quality level with professionals versus non-professionals.
But does it say does it say something about the desirability of that system that, you know, let's just take the study today. The spaces are full and people are paying in some cases $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 a month to do it. So
I just spoke to a care provider.
But they're going there for a reason.
And they're going there because a licensed center offers predictable, high quality care. It allows people to plan and to manage their work responsibilities around that child care. It's dependable. If you have a private babysitter down the street and they get sick, you're stuck. If you go to a child care center and one of the staff is sick and not available, they'll have a substitute that will come in. So there's a lot more predictability. There's a lot more trust that is able to build because of that. And it's not just the parent and the child care provider, but it's also the employer. And so the employer knows that the employee has got backup available and is less likely to have to call in because the babysitter is not available, as opposed to somebody who's using a licensed center-based care.
I just spoke to a care provider in Sudbury, and the center at the top of the hill has spaces available where she is full up. Other care providers in the GTA do things like provide care for not just the child late and perhaps overnight, but also for the mother when the weather was bad. This is a kind of care you'll never see in center-based care, which is why I think it's less popular. And the idea that people are flocking to centers is promoted by reports that like this that do not compare and contrast with the other forms of care available that parents are using.
So you suggest there's a better form of care, and your organization also suggests that the government should fund parents rather than care providers.
It's the most equitable way to get at support for parents with young children.
So how would that work? So how does that work if I need care? So fund the parents. So give me what amount of money?
Well, and that would be where the discussion would lie. But certainly when you have thousands of dollars going only to one form of care in the center-based setting, that's not fair to the many, many parents across the country who don't choose to use that form of care and will never see that money.
But it's very similar to looking at the publicly funded education system. We offer publicly funded education in most provinces from junior kindergarten on up. What some parents can still choose private care, or private education. They can pay for that, or they can homeschool if they want to. But we provide a base, we provide a foundation, because we have a collected best interest in making sure that kids have optimal development. And we chose age 5 historically because that was the age at which, at the time, we allowed kids to walk to school by themselves. But what we now know and what the research shows around child development and healthy brain development is that really 5 is arbitrary. And so what we're now seeing is that the provinces who are dropping that down and investing heavily in the early years, they're seeing results not only in family health and well-being, women's involvement in the paid labor force, less family stress because of the security and reliability of the care. So we have a vested interest as a society to invest in the education of children. That's not being at all debated. We've been investing in education for a long time. It's just where we start that is at debate right now.
Quick final word to you, Andrea, on that.
Developmentally, 5 is not arbitrary. It's a stage at which children can hold on to themselves and be out in the world. And here I'm quoting Canadian developmental psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld. Kids younger than that, parents know why they want a home-based setting because it's like the home environment. We want to support parents in their choices.
Okay, thank you both for the conversation. Good to talk to you both.
Thank you.